Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting is called to order. The time is 10 after 7. I apologize. We're running a little bit late in executive session, but we appreciate your patience. We're very pleased to have all of you here tonight, and we are glad to have those who are watching on HCTV, both the live broadcast at the moment as well as the delayed broadcast that will occur over the next couple of weeks. At this time, we will begin with an invocation and pledge of allegiance that will be led by Councilmember Bill Lanford. If you will, please stand.
Heavenly Father, you know the secrets of our hearts, and you know how hard it is for us to love one another. Some of us don't feel very loved. And Father, we just ask that you bless each of us with your love, an awareness of your love, that we may in turn love one another. That's the basis for all good relationships. It's a basis for a good city. And Father, we ask that you bless this city, bless the citizens of this city, and bless the proceedings tonight. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda tonight is a proclamation to be presented to the 2004-2005 Haltom High School Band. Do we have anyone here in the audience representing? Would you please join me at the podium, please? And since I don't know you, your name is?
Van Matthews.
You are the band director?
I'm one of the band directors.
You're one of the band directors. Well, come on up and let me make this presentation. We're very proud of the band at Haltom High School. They've worked hard and they competed at a very high level and they won an award, and we're very pleased. And if you'll convey that to the band, that we're very proud of them. This proclamation is a certificate of achievement presented to Haltom High School Marching Band. Whereas on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2004, the Haltom High School Marching Band competed in the University Interscholastic League 5A State Marching Band Competition in San Antonio. And whereas the Haltom High School Marching Band performed a program of space-inspired music, Celestial Bodies, to place in the finals of the top 10 bands in the state to participate in the 5A University Interscholastic League competition held at the Astrodome. And whereas with determination and splendid spirit, these young people in the Haltom High School Marching Band have brought honor and distinction to Haltom City and to the Northeast Tarrant County area with their achievement of placing 7th in the state competition. And whereas we encourage the citizens of this community to recognize the hard work, dedication, and enthusiasm these students displayed in their commitment to musical excellence. Now, therefore, I, Calvin White, Mayor of the City of Haltom City, and on behalf of the City Council and all of our citizens, wish to express our congratulations to the Haltom High School Marching Band and their director, Van Matthews, and wish them continued success in all their future endeavors. It's my pleasure to present this proclamation to you at this time. Would you like to address the council and the people of Haltom City?
I would. I'd simply like to say that it is an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity for our staff and our students at Haltom High School to represent a great community. We're very proud of our opportunities, and we look forward to future successes. Thank you for supporting us and acknowledging us on this day, and it means more than you'll ever know to have many people take just a moment out of their day to recognize the efforts and excellence that the students at Haltom High School are trying to achieve on a daily basis. It's really a very neat thing, and we appreciate the time that you've taken today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We move now to the announcements and events portion of our agenda. And Mr. Muir, you want to introduce the people who will be making announcements at this time, please.
Sure. We're going to start off with our Public Information Coordinator, Fran Burns. She's got a few announcements that she's going to share with us.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Muir. This Thursday is Veterans Day, and to observe that day and that event, the Haltom Senior Center will host a program beginning at noon, and the Senior Center is at 5000 Bernice Street. On November the 13th, Saturday, our city, along with the cities of North Richland Hills, and Watauga, all members of the Northeast Environmental Team, will be hosting the annual Texas Recycles Day Flea Market. And the motto of the market is, of that day, of the Texas Recycles Day, is reduce, reuse, recycle, and rebuy. And the flea market usually attracts about 60 vendors. It's outside on the parking lot at Richland Business Center, which is where the Ponchos is located. Most people know where that is. The hours are 8 a.m. until 3 p.m., and there are a lot of bargains, a lot of opportunities to find treasures out of others, maybe trash, and keep the materials out of the landfill. On Tuesday, November 16th, next Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock at the library, the Birdville Historical Society will meet, and the speaker for the evening is Jim Hardin. He is a former Secret Service agent, worked in the White House, protecting President Johnson, and President Nixon, and he is from Birdville, so he's going to talk about his experiences. And the musical entertainment for the evening is Beryl Welch, and he plays a harmonica. So if you'd like to come, it's free, and it's 7 o'clock at the library next Tuesday. On Wednesday, November 17th, the police department will host a child safety seat checkup, and this will take place at the Christian Center of Fort Worth from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Christian Center is located at 4301 Northeast 28th Street, and that's in Haltom City. And I'd like to tell you that this is really a worthwhile thing. When my daughter's son was 3 months old, she brought him to Springfest, and one of the officers there looked over the car seat that she was using and how she was placing him in the seat, and had some really good suggestions for keeping him safe while in the car. So that's free and open to everyone. That's Wednesday, November 17th from 10 until 2. And thank you very much.
Chief Burton's got something he's going to share with us.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Wanted to announce tonight that we have made a decision to provide an additional service to the citizens of Haltom City in the form of a program called crimeweb.net. What it will allow citizens to do is any citizen that lives in the city of Haltom City, in fact, any citizen that lives in Tarrant County for that matter, can sign up. They have to do it voluntarily, and we will be able to give them information on critical issues that are occurring in Haltom City by zip code. We plan to narrow it down even further, where we can narrow crime alerts down to the individual beats. So we're excited about it. We'll be coming to you with more information. We plan on a mailer in the water bills. We'll be providing information at City Hall and also at the police department over the next few weeks on how to get signed up for this program. It's a great service we're able to provide to the citizens for a very minimal cost. And we've just made the decision, and I asked Mr. Muir if it was okay if we announced it tonight, and so I'm doing that. So look forward to that.
Thank you very much, Chief, and Fran, also for the announcements you brought to our attention. Councilmember Reese, I believe you have an announcement to make at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got kids that are part of the Haltom High football program, and the quarterback club is holding a carnival this Saturday up here at, the kids know it as the Black Hole, but it's the Birdville Stadium, and it's during our Pee Wee football Super Bowl games. And the quarterback club has asked me if I can see of any citizens that could go out and support them. They're in desperate need for support, for banquets. They've had a very, very rough year. And if any of you guys have watched our games, or the football games, their record has changed dramatically this year. So anyone that can go, please go. It's from 9 to 5 up here at Birdville Stadium.
Thank you, Councilmember Reese. We move now to presentations by 3 members of the council who attended the Texas Municipal League annual conference in Corpus Christi a couple of weeks ago. We'll start with a report from Councilmember Holcomb, followed by Councilmember Clark, and then Councilmember Hutchison.
Thank you, Mayor. When attending the conference there in Corpus, Out of the several sessions I had written down on my schedule, the one that was most interesting to me, I think, was actually titled "The Economic Opportunities of the 21st Century." Talked about the assessment of various researches done across our state, and the take on the common blend of businesses and residents being in the same block or vicinity. They talked about forgive me, I'm at a loss of words. They talked about the way families in society have evolved from the more traditional methods of, mom being home, dinner on the table, 3 o'clock, 3:30, to more of a non-stop society. We got kids playing pee-wee ball. We have children involved in school activities, always on the go. Some of us are in city council meetings, things of that nature. But I thought it was really interesting, and it kind of excited me to see what possibilities are reachable by many of us. Aside from that, we had various opportunities for networking with other city officials, staffers, finding out how they've been dealing with many of the current issues that we see on a daily basis. Brought various angles and insight on those things. And I guess finally, many of you probably know there was an exhibit hall where various vendors and suppliers set up booths, and it actually gave us a first row opportunity of reading up on things like the radio read meters, various service providers such as SBC, why there's areas in Haltom City that doesn't actually have DSL, gave us an opportunity to meet those firsthand and find out why, I think that as far as that goes, it makes me feel more informed about what some of the issues we'll be facing right around the corner, where I might be able to make better decisions. I think that's about it, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Holcomb. Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While attending the TML conference, I was particularly impressed with the comments of Mr. Mark Towers, motivational speaker, a member of the Gail Davis Associations Incorporated. His topic was concerning management is a position, leadership is an honor. His ground rules for today's management are those in which I also try to follow. Number one, be on time, don't be critical, be constructive, help one another, leave your rank at the door, only one person speaks at a time, and have fun. Furthermore, he said, to manage means to handle or control. To lead means to teach. Again, my philosophy regarding leadership and how it relates to teaching. Both helps us to learn from yesterday, live for today, and hope for tomorrow. Other quotes he used I found also noteworthy to pass on to you. Leadership. Someone following someone else because they wanted to. Live by values, not by rules. In other words, value who you are and what you are. I do what I say, and I say when I don't. I very much like that one. I especially like the following quote because it goes along with one of my major beliefs regarding future growth and prosperity in Haltom City. Now listen to this one. If you do what's profitable, you don't often do what's right. If you do what's right, you don't often do what's profitable. In conclusion, I found this to be a very informative and motivational meeting. It was a benefit to me to attend and have such a meaningful conference and to interface with other delegates from around the state. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Clark, and now Councilmember Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, citizens of Haltom City, for allowing me to talk a little bit about what I learned. It was a challenge, and it was a very informative. I think the biggest challenge I had was that it was at a big convention center where they had something like 50 steps to get up to the very top so that we could go in. And so I had a difficult time climbing the steps initially getting there. Once I finally accomplished that, I think everything was downhill from that point in time. I did attend several sessions, and every one of them were very informative. I think it was some of the speakers that I saw were very entertaining, and yet they got their message across very well too. Some of the sessions that were very meaningful to me, one of them was one on legal risk, and I was a little nervous about that at first because I thought, they're going to give us they're going to tell us the parameters, and then they're going to squash the parameters of elected officials by telling us everything that we can and we can't do, and what risks that we have. But I found that to be not only informative but freeing at the same time. It provided me with information that would allow me to understand the flexibility that local governments can have, and especially in communicating with the public. And I think that's what the biggest challenge of elected officials on a local level have, is communicating with the public, because we have direct contact with you. So I found that very informative. I also went to a session on ethics, and it was very informative in terms of allowing us and to demonstrate our character and character of people in public in getting everyone involved, unified, and involved in all of the areas of community, whether it's in service, whether it's in programs, whether it is on boards that are staffed by the people of the city, and by the people that are paid staff. I found that very informative, and the ethical parameters around those too. I thought that was very good. It kind of freed me to understand too that there has to be a unification, and the real key to understanding how you can prevent ethical problems is just communicating well with the public and making sure that we have those open lines of communication. Also went to a very major one on changing demographics, and I agree with Councilman Holcomb, who stated that we got a lot of changes in society, changes in family parameters, changes in community parameters, changes in community action, and we have to adapt to those changes, and at the same time build a sense of unity at the same time. So I felt like that it was a very informative time, a very busy time. All the presentations and the exhibitions were very well done, very modern. But at the same time, I think there's something that I could take away from there, and that's hopefully to make me a better councilman, and also to understand the community and councilman involvement at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the council. It's important for members of the council, for elected officials to be involved in continuing education, and the Texas Municipal League is made up of the member cities from across the state, has once a year a convention or conference where all who want to attend from over the state come together and have an opportunity to be involved in these educational and instructional sessions, and it's very good. And I am pleased that these three gentlemen have given us their evaluation, their insights that they picked up while they were there. And hopefully the citizens of Haltom City and the quality of leadership that these three provide will reflect the information they picked up while you were there. Mr. Muir, I think you and Ms. Staub attended that same convention. Any comments from you regarding that, from both of you? At least that's where you said you were going.
I was trying to keep up with those three council members. The conference is a not to echo, I guess I am echoing what was already previously said. It's a tremendous learning tool, especially for the three individuals who did go. They're still relatively new, and it's a great learning experience for them. But for me and Ms. Staub, and also our HR director, Ms. Murray, and our finance director, Joel Welsh, went. It's a tremendous networking opportunity for us to meet with the other people in our positions in other cities, and to also meet with other council members to see what they're doing. And obviously, we were hit with a lot of, how did you handle this? How did you handle that? Because of some of the uniqueness that we've been through. So it's been a large learning experience, as it is every year going to those things. I've been to those things the last 10 years, and it's always come out with something very beneficial that you bring back to the job.
Ms. Staub?
I'll just, I guess, mimic what Mr. Muir said. It's a tremendous opportunity for networking. I learn many things each time I attend those, and it's helped my position here in Haltom City, and I thank you for allowing me to go.
Did you have something further? You act like you're ready to. Are you anticipating the next item on the agenda?
Yes,
Something
sir.
has him smiling.
My wife is sitting out there because she came for this demonstration. She's out there. I know what she's thinking, and I'm just smiling at her right now. So
Okay.
she's here for the next demonstration, though. So let's please move on to Ed.
Let's get the spotlight off of Tom for just a moment. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a presentation by our police department. They're going to do a briefing and a demonstration on the use of tasers. And do you want to introduce this, or shall the chief? It's all yours. And just keep that thing about 20 feet.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Mr. Muir. As the police chief, my primary concern is the safety of the officers that work for me. And they are out there as we're sitting in here right now protecting our city. And anytime you see something that can keep them safe or keep them out of harm's way, I feel it's our responsibility to examine those opportunities. And as you know, if you read in the media, a lot of agencies in our area, in fact, most agencies in our area, most agencies in the country are at least looking at the taser. And we started this a few months ago, and we just recently made the decision to purchase 10 of those and to equip our patrol officers with them. Many reasons went into that decision. We did research. Deputy Chief Everett did a research nationwide, talking to other departments, their good experiences, their bad experiences, whether or not they would do it over again, and it came back a resounding yes. So we asked throughout the department who might be interested in becoming instructors that would teach the rest of our department once we got the equipment. And the gentleman to my left, Officer Daniel Pearson, and apologize for his goatee. He's normally in a plain clothes assignment. He just dressed up for you tonight. Officer Jose Trevino and Officer Michael Sandlin. These three gentlemen went through the training exercise that we conducted here. We had 8 other agencies join us, and the taser people manufacturers came here, trained those departments, and these gentlemen here, in the use of the taser, and they are now certified instructors. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them tell you a little bit about what they learned. We have some demonstrations planned for you, and I think you'll find it very informative. We want the citizens of Haltom City to understand that while these things you read about in the paper, this person or that person was killed with the taser. In every circumstance, I am not aware of a single circumstance where the taser was the sole reason for the person's death. It's always been a combination of intoxication by narcotics or alcohol or a heart condition or whatever. But I think some of the statistics that they will share with you tonight will more than justify in your mind that Haltom City police officers need this extra level of protection. So Officer Michael Sandlin is going to take over.
Who's first? Okay, I've got some statistics here for you. From Orange County Sheriff's Office, before they got tasers, there's 120 injuries, officer injuries, in 1 year. After getting the taser, the next year, it went down 80%, and there was only 24 injuries. Suspect injuries went down 67% in Phoenix Police Department in 6 months. Lethal force went down 78% in Orange County Sheriff's Office. In a 24-month period, they had 18 officer-involved shootings. After they got tasers, there was only 4 the next 24 months. Baton strikes were down 56% in Orange County, and in 1 year before they got the tasers, there was 27 strikes, meaning an officer struck somebody. There was 27 incidents. The next year after they got tasers, there was 12 strikes. And I'll just show you the taser real quick so y'all can see what it looks like. This is the taser. There's a cartridge that fits in front of it. With this cartridge, there's 2 probes inside that when the trigger's pressed, they shoot out at an 8-degree angle on top of each other. And when that strikes the suspect, it sends 50,000 volts of electricity, which it comes out to 0.002 approximately amps. It's not the volts that injures, it's the amps. It's very, very low amps, way below I think it's like 2 or 3 amps is when you need to start worrying. That's too much for a person to take. But it's 0.00, it's just a very small fraction of that. And like the chief said, there's no deaths have ever been directly attributed to the taser. And we've got about 10 to 12 minutes, and we had a 4-hour block or a 12-hour block of instruction to learn how to use the taser and how it works. So I'm going to try to do my best in about 10 minutes to explain everything to you. I'm going to try not to get too technical. So, and we will demonstrate how it works. Myself and Officer Pearson decided that Officer Trevino would be a perfect candidate to do that. And that happens to be because he's got the least seniority, and that's how it works. Sorry. But the taser can also be deployed without the cartridges. If you see right here, it can be used as a regular stun gun. Once the trigger's depressed, it goes on a 5-second cycle until it stops. So if I was going to shoot a suspect with it, deploy it on a suspect, they're going to immediately go down to the ground. They're not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to be able to shoot anybody, stab anybody, hurt themselves, hurt anybody else, if it's used properly, if both probes get in them. If one of the probes misses, it's not going to do any good. You got one probe sticking in you, it's not going to do any good. So that's when you can go up and you stick the gun to them, and that completes the circuit. And that's how it works. Some people ask questions of, does it affect the heart or a pacemaker? And the answer is no. The taser-conducted energy weapons output is well below the level established as safe by the federal government. In a medical study, Dr. Robert Stratbucker tested the taser at the University of Missouri and confirmed that the T-wave does not interrupt the heartbeat or damage a pacemaker. Any modern pacemaker is designed to withstand electrical defibrillator pulses that are hundreds of times stronger than the taser. The voltage, you always hear the media, they shocked them with 50,000 volts. Well, in the summer, you can shock yourself on a doorknob, and that can give you 25,000 volts just from that. And this is twice that. The typical household current is 110 volts. It's dangerous because it can pump any amps of current throughout the body indefinitely. By contrast, taser-conducted energy weapons have high voltage but very low amperage. That's what makes it safe and less lethal. Let me see here. And if anybody has any questions, the council or the citizens, please speak up or catch us after the meeting, and we'll answer any questions you might have. The probes don't have to stick into a person's skin for it to work. I'm not going to shoot a live cartridge at Officer Trevino. I have a cartridge that has wires hooked up to it that I made that has alligator clips on it. You can clip it onto the shirt, pants, whatever, and it'll work that way also. it arcs up to 2 inches, so that's why it doesn't have to penetrate the skin to be effective. And does anybody have any questions right now? Any concerns about the taser?
Yes, sir, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the approximate amp on a 110 house current?
I am not sure.
Somewhere around 7? 15. 15, thank you.
Okay.
I believe we have a question from the audience.
Yes.
Yes.
No. The water, whether you're standing in water, it has the same effect whether you're standing on dry land. It doesn't. The taser's already using the maximum power it can use, so it's not going to get any greater just because you're standing in the water. It's just going to be all the same.
Water does not amplify electricity. Water is just a better conductor. The only person that's going to get shocked while the taser is deployed is the person who has them deployed in him. These tasers are made so that they go for 5 seconds. They get a 5-second 50,000 volt. They're called muscle disruption units. Okay, and basically what happens is we give them 5 seconds, and once that's done, they're back to normal, and we get a chance to see if they're going to stop resisting or comply with our demands. If they don't, they continue to fight, and we have a certain situation, we can shock him again so that other officers can handle him at that situation. They won't be tased. They won't feel the effects unless they get in the center of the current. Okay, so if he gets shot here and here, electricity is only going through the layer of the skin, and it hits your muscles. It doesn't ever affect your heart. Your heart's too far away. Even if someone was to get a taser here and a taser here, you would think that it would go right through. Well, it doesn't. It takes a path of least resistance. It would go all the way around the body, which would be unlikely because you couldn't shoot someone and get them on each side. There's videotape footage about someone wanting to commit suicide, and he's in a pond. They shoot him with a taser, and officers go in and jump and grab them while they're all in the water, and they all came out fine. So,
I believe we have another question over here.
Well, I think you answered it. They're incapacitated only as long as that voltage is going. It doesn't, have a prolonged effect.
no, as soon as it's done, the very second that the gun is shut off, they'll be okay. In some cases, they might feel a slight dizziness or be in a daze for maybe a second, if that.
If after the 5 seconds the suspect's still wanting to fight, there isn't a ban or orders, you just pull the trigger again and it's another 5 seconds. And believe me, it's not going to take that many trigger pulls to realize, hey, this hurts, I better do what they say.
Generally, on your regular case, someone who's not intoxicated, even intoxicated with alcohol or some other types of narcotics, one time is all it takes. If someone's on something such as PCP, where the person doesn't feel any pain, this is a great device for that because it's not pain that they're going to feel, it's just muscular disruption. This puts out a T wave that it puts out the exact same electrical waves that the brain does. This just overrides it. So while they're hitting him, a guy on PCP that doesn't feel any pain and doesn't want to comply might need to take, 3 or 4, and generally they stop. At that point, they just stop, and that's what cuts down on all our injuries.
One of the other things one of the things you asked about, the person would still be upset. Videos after videos we saw where one of them was in a correction facility. The guy was cussing at the officers, the correction officers wanting to fight him, trying to get him to come into the cell. And usually in those correction facilities, they got 5 or 6 people that are going to go in as a takedown team. What they were able to do, because this guy peeled almost all of his clothing off because he was intoxicated, high, and everything else. As soon as he peeled all his clothing off, he's trying to instigate the officers to come in. They open the door, fire the taser at him, puts him to the ground, and when everything was all said and done, he was apologizing to the officers. So it doesn't...
And said thank you.
Yeah, and said thank you because he was less hurt than he would have been. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to go in there, and you're going to be falling all over each other, you're going to be tripping. People are going to be doing whatever they have to do to regain the control of the situation. So there's nothing they can do for that 5 seconds. Trust me, I took the full 5-second ride over there at the police department when I was in training. And I made the mistake when the instructor said how long. I said whatever. So
Okay, I think we have another question back here, and if you gentlemen, in answering the questions, don't mind getting close to the microphone for the benefit of people in the audience as well as the TV audience. Yes, ma'am.
I think what she's asking is that if there's any, I don't know, I think this might answer your question. Taking a shock like that is like doing a 45-minute workout. If that'll answer the question, when I was tased, I had it on each side, and when it makes your muscles contract for 5 seconds, that's equal to a 45-minute workout.
They basically told us in the class that if we took the taser and dry stunned ourselves in the stomach 5 seconds a day for a month, we'd have rock hard abs. So, you know, that's what they say. Abs, abdomen area.
But the taser is strictly a self-defense weapon. It's not used for helping out any muscles or anything like that. It's just used for, you know, stopping a threat. No, it's not Well, I got shocked also, and there was no part of it that was relaxing. I guess afterwards, compared to the actual shock, it was it's over. As soon as they stop, you just feel like you did before you got tased.
We have 2 or 3 other questions back here. The gentleman in red, and then Mr. Williams, and then Ms. Witt.
Basically,
Daniel?
repeat the question.
Yeah, please repeat the question, because for the people at home, they can't hear. Please.
Basically, the question that's being asked is if we shoot the taser and actually miss the suspect, do we have another chance without approaching that suspect in order to initiate another shot? The recommendation that we're going to go with the department is that each officer will carry a replacement cartridge on their belt at all times. That way they do have at least 2 cartridges. If they miss a second shot, they're going to have to be in close enough that they can dry stun the subject. Correct. The thing about it, though, is if I can get close enough, and again, it's not something, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, but if we can get close enough to them, you know, within arm's reach, trust me, as soon as that touches them, they're going down. I mean, there is no fight left in them. And we've had people, as big as he is, I mean, he fights in the boxing, and he went down immediately. I went down immediately. He took the second and a half and said, enough's enough. I mean, it hurts. Oh, I'm sorry.
Now, if the instructor gives you the option of 1.5 seconds or 5, I took 1.5. He said he doesn't care, so.
Okay, Mr. Williams, and then Ms. Witt.
You made a comment a while ago from 20 foot. I suppose that's going to be the range. And Mr. Trevino is a black belt in karate, I understand. With him charging, you'll still be able to hit with a gun?
Right. The question is whether or not 20 foot, you're still going to be able to hit them with the gun. It's a 21-foot distance is basically the way the leads are 21 foot, okay? 21 feet is also, if someone approaches us within 21 feet of me with a knife, I can justify deadly force under state law, okay? Because obviously somebody gets within 21 feet of me, it's going to go through my vest. I don't care what I'm wearing. It's going to go through, and knives will do that. That's what these were designed for as well. If the further they get out there, the less, you're still going to have the same results as long as you get the penetration on the body or both, you get 2 contacts. That's the biggest problem because these leads are coming out at an 8-degree angle. So the optimum distance is 7 feet. That's what we're going to train everybody. That's what we're going to pass along to everybody. but they do have 21 feet. Now, something else is I can shoot that taser within 7 feet. As soon as it makes contact with the suspect, then we back up. We don't rush up on them. If they want to continue to resist until they get done, then we're going to just let them be down there, and we'll back off. That's what the 21-foot leads are for primarily, is so that you can make contact and back out instead of going up and risking injury to the officer or the suspect any further.
Ms. Witt?
I just saw this today, so I'll go ahead and answer the question. The question is, how much do the tasers cost? The actual weapon itself is $799.95. They're right at $800. The cartridges, we have training cartridges that we'll use when we're training the officers. They're on a 15-foot lead. They are almost $17 a piece. The actual deployment cartridges that will be used on the suspects are $19 a piece. Now, there are other cartridges out there that we are going to be looking at in the department. The cartridges go into this body or into the clothing that you're wearing up to 1/4 of an inch, the ones that we currently have purchased. They do have winter cartridges out there. For people that are wearing heavier clothing, they will go in up to 1/2 an inch. Those cartridges are a little bit more. They're probably $1 or $2 more. I don't have the exact dollar, but for the most part, they're going up $1 or $2 for each different type of cartridge. No, ma'am. There is the question is, can the criminals get access to these tasers as well? There is a civilian-based taser out there. Okay, it doesn't give out the volt, or it doesn't give out the same. It's not going to have the same effect that's going to have it on the ones that we have. Taser International sells to law enforcement, and that's where these were purchased from. That's who instructed us in everything. So no, you can't just go online and purchase it as a bad guy and then deploy that on us. However, obviously this is another weapon that we're going to have at our disposal that we have to protect also. And this is going to be something in our training that we're going to cover. This, I mean, as y'all can tell, for those of you who haven't seen, it's the opposite of your duty gun. Okay, it's basically a cross draw. This is so that you don't get the weapons mixed up in the heat of the moment. Okay, and that's the main reason for it. A lot of the departments have leg holsters and things like that. We've chosen this option, and I think it's going to be the best for us, and that's what most departments are going to.
Okay,
I'd like to add to that also, just to give you some information. Taser International does make a civilian taser that is a lower voltage. It's not as high impact as this one, but they do have in these cartridges. These before they're expended. This is just homemade so that for practice. They've got some doors on them. Okay, and inside they call the aphids. Aphids, they're like little confetti. They look like confetti. Is that what it is? Yeah. And each one of those have a serial number. These cartridges each have a number. So when you buy one or buy them by the cartridge, these are our numbers for our police department. Whenever a civilian buys them, they are written down and logged to them. So if they were to ever use them in a crime or anything at all, it's kind of like DNA. It's going to leave a bunch of confetti everywhere. You pick it up, and there it is. And it goes right back to whoever bought them.
As it does for the officers. That's another tool that we have out here. That way, if you do have multiple officers engaging a target or suspect, and they were both to fire at the same time, it's going to throw these chads or these identifiers out there, and you're going to know exactly where it came from. And plus, these they're designed. There's a computer inside these, and it designs to download everything. It gives you the date, the time, the officer, where it was checked out that fired it. So there's not going to be any of this, I didn't fire it, I don't know. No, I don't know what they're talking about. Everything we do is going to be checked and double-checked. It'll then be downloaded from the gun into a computer that will store that information as well.
We have a couple of more questions, and then we'll move on to the demonstration. First, Mr. Moore, and then Mr. Watkins.
On the little probes that actually penetrate, do they have little barbs to hold in to the skin or clothing?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And when you pull it, you can pull it out. It just doesn't get stuck. It just comes out real simple.
And we'll show you here in just a second, because actually we've kind of changed it up a little bit. Detective Stair is actually going to be hooked up to this. I believe the judge. You're also wanting to do it, sir?
I didn't say I was wanting to do
Well,
If you want.
okay. And Officer Trevino is I'm actually going to shoot the taser, the prongs into him, and then we're going to do one on the target as well. So you'll see each different one, and I can go ahead and do this if there's any other questions, because I hate to tie up the entire evening. We will be here. I'll be here until the end of the night, and we'll answer any questions that y'all might think of after the
We
demonstration.
have Mr. Watkins with the final question, and we'll go ahead with the demonstration.
No, sir. The question is, if multiple officers shoot the suspect, is that gonna change or hurt that suspect any further than they would have been hurt with one? No, it does not. It's going to double the amperage, obviously, but still we're less than 1 amp. I mean, it's .004 is the actual amperage that's being thrown out there. So you could shoot up to 4 tasers into the same, or actually eat 8 leads into the same person, and you're still going to be under. And I don't think we're going to have that happening, because we are going to stress in training, and we've already got some things that's going to be out there. It's very clear. When we draw these tasers out of our weapon, we are going to be saying taser, 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 to let the officers know that's a taser that we're pulling out, not our guns, that we're not addressing a deadly force issue. We're addressing someone that's resisting us.
Okay, gentlemen, go ahead with the demonstration.
I'll go ahead. I'm going to go ahead. The first demonstration we're going to do is I'm just going to fire the 2 leads just so y'all can see what it does to the target itself. Now, granted, this is probably a little Hollywoodish, because obviously if we shoot this into someone, you're not going to see all the electricity all over the body, okay? This is more of a training target so that you see the volts that are going to be going through. Is there any way we could just kill just a few of the lights? Yeah.
That's good.
Again, like Officer Sandlin already talked about, the laser, basically where the laser goes is where the first lead's going to go. And we're going to be giving commands to the suspects, quit resisting, stop, whatever the situation is at the time, they're not going to do it. And I'm off the trigger, but they're still getting it, okay? If they want to continue fighting, they're getting it again. Until those leads come out, I can continue hitting it for 5 seconds.
This gun will only go for 5 seconds. If he double taps the trigger, it won't go 10. It'll just go 5 and it'll stop.
And the other feature, like I talked about with the computer module, I could sit here and pull this trigger constantly. It will record every single time I pulled it, even though it's not given any more than one at a time. And as y'all can tell, my dot was up here. This is the first. This is where the second one went. So basically, it's just above the stomach, and it's right below, right here in the chest, upper chest. And I'll leave these in here, and basically at the end, again, we just pull these out. Sorry about that.
That's all right. You're walking around.
But say for example, we didn't make the contact, we can come up, and you can dry stun even with the cartridge still in. Or we throw it out, reload, go again. And Deputy Chief Everett and Chief Burton, if y'all would please hold each side of her so we can show that does not pass along to anyone else around them.
Mr. Watkins, could you turn on the lights again, please? Thank you.
All Haltom City officers will be asked to be subjected to this when they go through the training. Terry's getting hers over early so she doesn't have to do it in front of her peers. She's doing it in front of you instead.
They're not going to get shocked by it. If they touch in between the leads, they will. It's a self-correcting mistake. And it's not going to be the same as if you're hooked up to it. It's not going to hurt as bad, but you're going to know it. You're going to pull back. So.
For those of you who didn't hear, I'm going to let her repeat this.
What's that?
You want full 5?
Let's do it.
Full 5.
She's gonna wanna, when,
You can start laying
you're
her
gonna wanna
back.
go back with her.
We're gonna get, so it's a demonstration for
Hold on,
them,
hold on, just
so we're gonna show them what it's like.
You just want to start laying her back when.
Now, she's got the vest on, and it's alligator clipped to her, okay? I guess they clipped it in our class. Well, they actually shot a guy with a vest, so the 5 seconds is going to go. I want you to just lay her back. She's probably just going to stiffen up just like that, and just lay her back real gently. And just hold right exactly where you're at.
Chief, have you had one?
Say the cartridge goes in, just simple, just like that. You want 5? Okay, it's not hooked up correct. It might be something to do with the bag.
Yeah, you should have just laid down and let it go with that, is what you should have done.
Let me try it again. See how effective they are. Do you have yours in case a wire broke or something in there, if that's the case? Okay.
We'll
No.
go ahead and just apply it to her pants leg and her shirt. Top. Behind her shirt. Not behind her shirt, just her undershirt.
We'll do the leg.
Yeah, just do the legs.
Now, if it doesn't do it this time, then there's something. I soldered this and it was working earlier today. Something, the wires must have broke or something, but that's all it is.
That's
Okay.
one.
Yeah, that's. Okay. Let me get behind y'all. Yeah, that's what I'm. Hey, Doug.
Yeah, that's,
That's it. How do you feel right now?
Anybody smell flesh?
While there's
I just want to let y'all know that this taser is only going to affect the area, the muscles that between the leads. In this case, they were put on each side, so this is going to affect a large area. If they were both entered into low muscular area, there'd be less of an effect, which would be a belly, someone with some belly fat or something like that. If they're put on this side will curl up wherever they put them.
I'm gonna try to hook it up to the upper body again. Maybe it had something to do with all the vests and all the layers that she had when she wasn't going to get them.
oh! I'd like to do it to the judge.
Does he get some type of a badge? Does he become a member of something?
Well, I want to thank Judge, both you and Officer Stayer, for volunteering for this tonight. Officer Stayer, I believe, is our public information officer from the police department, and when she speaks, she will know whereof she speaks after tonight. So, thank you for both of you.
But again, if there's any questions that come up, or if y'all want to see anything else after the council meeting, let us know. We'll be here. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Chief, to you and your staff, thank you. And I'm glad this was televised. I hope all the bad people out there were watching this and will be forewarned. We want to protect our officers and keep them safe.
If I can add something, I'd like to thank the police department for doing this. I know none of y'all liked it. Terry, thank you very much. And Judge, thank you for stepping up. That was awful considerate of you. I think it was important that the citizens see what this is, but I think more importantly that they see that they do get up. It is not, it can be lethal, but it is certainly not meant to be that way. And I appreciate your time and your efforts tonight. Thank you.
Okay, we move now to the consent agenda. That is items number 1 through 5. The consent agenda is considered to be self-explanatory and will be enacted by the council with one motion. An affirmative vote by the council authorizes the city manager to implement each of these items in accordance with the recommendation. Councilmember Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve consent agenda items number 1 through 5.
Have a motion for approval. Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. That's a second.
Have a motion and a second to approve. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay, there being none, if you'll register your vote. And that passes with unanimous vote of the council. Item number 6, 7, and 8 are public hearings, and we'll approach those one at a time. First of all, item number 6 has to do with regulating gas drilling within the city. This is a public hearing, and members of the audience will have an opportunity to ask questions, to participate in the process, give us your input a little bit later. But now to begin with, our city engineer, Mr. Bennett Howell.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'd like to present to you the first reading of the gas drilling and production ordinance. This ordinance was prepared by the Planning and Zoning Commission after input from the Police Department, Fire Department, Planning and Zoning Department, Public Works, and Economic Development. The idea of this ordinance is to try to make the permitting process as flexible as possible so that the city's own interests and the drilling company's interests are met. We also reviewed Fort Worth's ordinance, Saginaw's, Trophy Club's, Roanoke's, Haslett's, and Nacogdoches. The goal was to establish a reasonable and uniform regulations to protect the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. The permitting itself is a two-step process. The first step is the zoning issues have to be addressed and have to be met. The way our ordinance reads as is, if the area is zoned industrial, they can be permitted directly on the staff level. Any other zoning issues and public parks will have to require a conditional use permit, which will require planning and zoning approval and city council approval. Once the zoning issues have been met, the parts of the actual permit can be addressed. There's two types of permits. There's the urban well permit, and there's the high impact well permit. The differences will be how close the potential well site is to public places of gathering such as churches, hospitals, residential areas, that sort of thing. If it's greater than 600 feet away, then it's considered an urban permit. If it's less than 600 feet, then it's a high impact. The high impact permits will require council approval. The urban permits will not. The urban permits will be held at the staff level. This was done just to minimize how much permit issues that the council itself has to address. We felt that the industrial areas were already set up, for the most part, to handle this type of activity. Now, there may be some specific instances in the urban areas or in the industrial areas where a high impact well permit will be required, because we do have some people living within the industrial areas. So if they're within the 600 feet of proposed well location, then a high-impact permit will be required. Both the high-impact and the urban well have the same fencing and landscape requirements. The high-impact will also has more noise restrictions placed on them than the urban well. The high-impact noise restrictions are 78 decibels during production and 85 decibels during the fractionation steps. These noise measurements are measured 300 feet away at all four directions of the compass and averaged. The urban well permit noise levels are 85 decibels at production and 90 decibels at fraction. Same type of thing, measured at 300 feet away. At any time, if the noise goes above this, the city has the authority to request mufflers placed on equipment, that kind of thing. The ordinance also allows for periodic reports from the drilling company to be submitted to the city. Also requires any correspondence between the Railroad Commission, which is the state governing body, and the drillers to be submitted to the city also. The ordinance also requires certain amounts of bonds, letter of credit, insurance, pollution liability, that sort of thing to protect the city. The companies will also be required to submit hazard plans and emergency response plans to the city and to the fire marshal, so that the city will be able to review these to make sure that they meet our requirements and that all the evacuation routes, that kind of thing, are appropriate. All the wells themselves will be identified with the well name, 24-hour phone numbers, that sort of thing. There will be an appeal process. If a developer does not agree with the staff level recommendations, then they can appeal it to the city council. If they do not agree with what the city council says, then they have to appeal it to a state district judge. Okay. Some of the things, some of the residents may have been noticed west of here, there's a lot of drilling activities going on. The closest place right now that they can see actual wells being drilled is in Saginaw, right off of 820 and Blue Mountain Road and Business 287. There's two wells being drilled right there. Further down on 820 at Hazel Avenue, there is a completed well, so they can actually see what is going to be in the ground. Most of the activities will be happening while the well is being drilled, which usually is only a couple of months. Once the well has been drilled, the rig is removed, and so is the frac tanks and any of the major drilling pieces of equipment. And the only thing left will be small tanks and then the well stem itself. Some people have been concerned about water runoff and other issues. The drilling companies are required under state law and under city law to minimize how much rainwater may be running off the properties. And if they do have a release, they are required to clean it up, and they have insurance, pollution liability insurance, to cover anything like that. Some other people have been calling wanting to know what types of revenues that could be generated off these wells. Fort Worth is estimating off of wells that are produced on their city-owned property that a single well will generate about $2 million over the life of the well. So those are just broad estimates of what potential wells could be bringing in on city-owned property. If it's not on city-owned property, the city will be gaining some money from permit fees, inspection fees, that sort of thing. Or if there's any pipelines crossing city property, we will have some revenues generated from that. And one of the other things people have called is want to address surface owner rights versus mineral owner rights. Under state law, the surface owner cannot stop the mineral owner from extracting the minerals. So since this state was built on oil and gas, they have much more leverage than the surface owner people. But usually the drilling companies want to cooperate as much as they can with the surface owners just to make life easier. At that, I'll answer any questions.
Members of the council, before we open the public hearing to allow audience to ask questions, any questions from the council? Councilmember Branson.
Thank you, Mayor. These aren't really questions. These are, and maybe Mr. Howell already addressed them, but some of the citizens that I've talked to, I think one of the things that's really important to know is that actually we already have oil and gas regulations in Haltom City, but the state regulates them. And with an ordinance that we have on the books, they're really tighter and more strict as far as state law, as constrictive as state law will allow us to make them. And isn't that correct?
That's correct. The other areas where this ordinance addresses that state law does not is, for example, in roads.
Right.
We require the developer to put in a road maintenance bond so that if they tear up or damage any of our roads during this opportunity, then they will have to pay for them to get fixed.
Well, and also we include the landscaping provisions, which I understand that the state does not require that there be bushes.
Correct.
Certain that the fences be constructed out of certain materials and that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's, I think some people were concerned that we were allowing something to come into the city that they couldn't already do. So I just want to be sure everyone knows that they could do it if they had desired to do it up to this point. Right. And the other thing is that it doesn't necessarily mean we'll have wells in Haltom City, because there has to be a way to get the gas in and out of the site where the well would be drilled.
Correct.
And pipelines are rather expensive to put in. But should that happen, then the city will benefit from revenues anywhere the pipeline crosses city property.
That is correct. That has been one of the slowing points of drilling in this area, is the lack of pipelines. There are companies installing pipelines currently around Loop 820 area because of the wells that are being built in Saginaw, and also along Trinity River along the south. So the pipelines are being built, so eventually people could potentially build wells. This ordinance does not, it's put in place to protect the city. There's no guarantee that anybody will drill any wells.
Right. And we really don't have any knowledge if we have any of the...
I'm just aware of just a couple of potential places.
And I think citizens also need to be aware that we already have pipelines underneath our city, so even should they come in and add more pipelines, we already have other pipelines carrying other items throughout the city already.
We have approximately 5 liquid petroleum lines across the city.
Okay, I just thought that was important information for the citizens to know. Thank you.
Councilmember Reese and then Councilmember Clark.
I was wanting to know, what is the average life expectancy of a well?
20, 30 years, somewhere in that range. They may be able to go in and rework the well to get further life out of them. It depends on how technology advances.
Anything further? Councilmember Clark.
Yes, sir. Can you tell me the approximate depth of the wells, and what is the approximate reach and distance on slant well drilling at an angle?
The depths of these wells are anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 feet, somewhere in that vicinity. Horizontal wells, they can go to the edge of the leases, their distance is pretty,
So they are restricted on slant drilling?
somewhat. They can't go beyond their lease.
So you can't have one at the north edge of the city and one in the south and reach the whole city?
No.
Okay.
Councilmember Hutchison.
Yes, I think it's also important for the citizens to know that the maintenance and cleanup of drilling procedures meets in environmental regulations, adequate environmental regulations, and that is also in this ordinance. And they're a little bit tighter than the state regulations too.
Yes.
Thank you.
No one else has a light on. Mr. Muir, anything from you or any other member of your staff before I open the public hearing?
I don't have anything from any of my staff, I don't believe, but I'd like to say something. Essentially two permits, an urban gas permit and a high-impact gas permit.
Correct.
Is that right? And the urban gas permit is going to be issued by the staff?
Correct.
By your office or unless otherwise designated?
Correct.
And the high-impact gas permit comes to the council?
Correct.
And if a urban gas permit is denied by your office, there is an appeals process through this ordinance, is that right?
Correct.
And that is coming to this body?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to point that out and make that clear. There is an appeals, even with the staff issues.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Muir. I'll open the public hearing at this time. If we have anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and give us your input or ask questions of our city engineer or other staff member, you have an opportunity to do that at this time. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak? Mr. Moore, if you will, come to the podium, please give us your name and address for the record, and we have a 6-minute time frame for you, please.
My name is Jim Moore, 4917 Medela. I was curious about the noise, requirements. You were talking about one of them was 90 decibels at 600 feet. That's loud. Now, is that just during the drilling of the well when it's capped, or does this noise go on all the time? Because 90 decibels at 2 football fields away is a heck of a lot of noise. I mean, any closer, it would just be, if you lived up 1,200 feet from there, it would just be unbearable,
The 90 decibels is during what they call the fractionation of the wells, and usually that lasts usually just a few days to less than a week. And then the noise will go back down to a reasonable level. Once the well is drilled, the noise level will be minimal. You won't see it. Only thing it is, it's what they call a Christmas tree, and it has the above ground valves and things, and that's it. It's be similar to, in some parts of the city, you might see Lone Star Gas, or I guess TXU gas station that are above grounds. It'll be just like that.
Along that same line, Mr. Howell, before you get away, is the 90 decibels during the fracturing process consistent with the other ordinances that you looked at?
Yes, that's consistent with the other ordinances and with state law.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience? Councilmember Bransom, did you have a? Okay. Councilmember Sutton, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a comment. Yeah, the 90 decibels is, I believe I was looking for it in here, but I believe that's part of in the industrial area. That would not be applicable to the residential areas.
Correct. The residential is 85 decibels during fractionation.
And 78 during the normal well operation.
During drilling.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anyone else in the audience wish to address the council during this public hearing with comments or questions? Okay, there being none, I'll close the public hearing at this time, and we're ready now to give consideration to the first reading of the ordinance that is specified on the agenda. Councilmember Bransom?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we accept on the first reading, with the second reading coming, ordinance number 2004-026-15.
We have a motion. Councilmember Reese?
That's for a second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council on the motion? Okay, there being none, the council is about to vote to approve or not to approve this ordinance on first reading. So what is the pleasure of the council? And it passes by unanimous vote. Okay, this is the first reading of this ordinance. Will this be on the next agenda for us to consider a second reading? Moving now to item number 7. You want to introduce this, Mr. Muir?
Mr. Pliska is going to introduce this item. This goes hand in hand with the item you guys just approved.
Thank you, Mr. Muir, Mayor, City Council members, citizens of Haltom City. Now that you've addressed the city's gas drilling and production ordinance, we need to amend the city's zoning ordinance to allow for this type of use in the industrial areas as a permitted use and in other districts as listed in our zoning ordinance for a conditional use permit. That conditional use permit will be a public hearing process that will go before planning and zoning and appear before this body as well.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and before I open the public hearing to members of the audience, members of the council, any questions for Mr. Pliska? Okay, there being none, I open the public hearing at this time. Do we have any members of the audience who wish to either make comments or ask questions regarding this item number 7, to amend the zoning ordinance to allow for the drilling of the gas wells? Okay, there being none, I close the public hearing at this time, and I'm ready now for a motion regarding the wish of the council on item number 7. Councilmember Reese, you had your light on, and then Councilmember Sutton.
I move for us to approve ordinance number 02004-025-15.
Okay, we have a motion. Councilmember Sutton.
Thank you, Mary. That's for a second.
Councilmember Branson.
That was for a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve on first reading the zoning ordinance, amending the zoning ordinance. If you're ready to vote, if you will cast your vote, I will display it at this time, and that passes by unanimous vote of the council. The final public hearing tonight is item number 8, and Mr. Pliska, I would assume you're still standing at the podium. You're going to be the one to present that.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. This is for a conditional use permit, which will be located at 4745 Northeast 28th Street. Legal description is Lot 3, Block 4 of the Earls Edition, and contains a lot of approximately 9,480 square feet. This is for an auto repair facility in a C3 district. C3 does not allow for an auto repair facility without a conditional use permit. I've also included a site plan for your approval as well. The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit to allow this use on the site. It was a former auto repair facility for years. This particular site suffered a fire, and since then the applicant has bought this facility, cleared it off, and built a new facility approximately a year ago and has laid dormant. Since then, he has now have an owner come forward and wishes to establish a use there. At the meeting of the October 26, 2004 P&Z Commission, they voted unanimously to recommend approval of this conditional use permit with this site plan for approval and request that it be sent to the City Council.
Okay, members of the council, do we have any questions for Mr. Pliska regarding this item? Okay, this is a public hearing. I open the public hearing at this time to allow members of the audience who wish to speak for or against this conditional use permit to allow the auto repair shop at the address given. Is the owner of the property present tonight? Would you like to address the council or just be available in case the council? Okay, members of the council, any questions? Do you have any questions for the owner? Okay, I believe there are none. Thank you. Any member of the audience wishing to speak on this item? You have an opportunity to do so at this time. Okay, there being none, I'll close the public hearing and we'll move then to the corresponding ordinance. What is the pleasure of the council regarding agenda item number 8? Councilmember Lanford.
Move to approve ordinance 020402415.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Councilmember Holcomb.
For a second.
Councilmember Hutchison.
That was for a second also.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve on first reading Do we have any comments on the motion by the council? If you will, register your vote, and that passes by unanimous vote. The next item on the agenda is the Visitor Citizens Forum, and this is a time set aside for any person having business before the council that is not scheduled on the agenda to have an opportunity to speak to the council. I believe we have one request form filled out. Mr. Eklund, you're familiar with the process. Give us your name and address for the record, please, and you have 6 minutes, and the subject on which you wish to speak, progress in Haltom City, and you've checked for, you're for progress in Haltom City with an exclamation point at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ray Eklund. I live at 2532 Oakwood Terrace. Good evening, Council. Last Saturday in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, these words appeared: "Jeers to the mayor and 4 city council members in Haltom City who just imposed $8.2 million worth of city government on disabled, elderly, churches, schools, and able-bodied taxpayers through drainage fees." End quote. It was signed by one Mr. Jack O. Lewis of Haltom City. I find it rather odd that Mr. Lewis, of all people, would make these comments. When I pointed out during the discussion of the senior tax freeze, the projected financial impact would reach into the millions of dollars of lost revenue, Mr. Lewis specifically challenged the projections. In fact, he went on to criticize the idea of financial projections at all. We went on to discuss the effects of lost revenues on the city's budget. The same Mr. Lewis and others told us basically that the city can't lose what it doesn't yet have, or some such logic. Certainly, the logic is the same today as it was before the senior tax freeze, or is it? Maybe it was just a figure of speech used by the supporters of the tax freeze to confuse the issue. We have seen the drastic effects of our government succumbing to the short-sightedness and self-serving promotions antics of special interest groups. We can look today at the attacks of civility hoisted upon the public by these same special interest groups in our neighboring city of Bedford. You can look in the paper today or yesterday for those. In Haltom City, we can look back to the administration of our city under the leadership of then Mayor Lewis and others to find the profound effects of a mentality that could not or would not look to the future. Haltom City still has not recovered from the short-sightedness of a tax policy that failed miserably to fund government functions. Streets became nearly impassable, city planning and zoning was ignored, attracting new business was unheard of, while North Richland Hills, Hearst, Bedford, Euless developed, Haltom City went into a tailspin that it struggles to pull out of to this very day. Councils from that time forward to now have had to deal with the burden left behind. Each council has had to play catch-up. There was the EPA-mandated repairs to the sewer system. There are still acres of undeveloped, unproductive land throughout our city because they lack the necessary infrastructure that was never built due to low tax mentality. There was the flooding of residents' homes and the waterways, again, due to insufficient funds to correct the flooding. Don't forget a minimum of parks and library services. And lastly, not to be forgotten, our city employees, low wages, and lack of affordable health insurance. I'm sure that none of these things crosses the mind of the anti-government, anti-tax crusaders. They're too busy congratulating themselves on successfully fighting the evils of government. Yet, I find it odd that these very people are the beneficiaries of many government programs, such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and government-protected pensions. The councils of the recent past have begun to listen to the majority of the citizens in this community. We have said we are tired of not having the basic needs of the citizens met. We voted to pass bond issues in the amount of $15.9 million to bring our city up to some reasonable standard. We voted to have our street funds increased. We voted to have our parks improved. We voted to have a large flood control issue fixed. We voted to build an adequate fire station. We voted to fund a new library building to serve our children and our neighbors in need. We voted for these things even though we know they had to be paid for. We voted for these things even though we could have saved a few dollars in lower taxes. We knew it was a needed thing to do, and we knew it was the right thing to do. We knew we were falling further and further behind. And guess who was in opposition to these same bond issues? The same group that threatens tax rollbacks, elections, and recalls our elected representatives each budget year. The same group that objects to any fee to support the citizens' needs in the city. The same group that consumes a healthy share of our city-provided services and yet enjoys tax exemptions and tax freezes. I think this council may be trying to listen to the citizens as well. The 2004-2005 council will be building the last of the projects from the bond election cited above. The drainage fee is another method to address these pressing issues in our city, and some would say it was a tough political choice, but I say it was really the only choice. The senior tax freeze just passed exempted 20% of Haltom households from sharing in the cost of these needed repairs. A property tax levy would not have applied to some of the largest contributors of stormwater runoff, that being churches and schools. And Mr. Lewis's comments in the paper make for startling copy, but do they really address the issue at hand? No, it's just more of the same old inflammatory rhetoric that has been spewed for decades in this town. The stormwater utility fee could have been avoided if 20 years ago Haltom City leadership had responsibly faced up to the financial obligations of a modern city. They did not meet their responsibility, and now we're paying the price to correct those wrongs. Elected officials have one unerring mandate: move the city forward. This council is attempting to do that with the stormwater utility fee. Shame on Mr. Lewis for not making the tough decisions 20 years ago, and shame on him now for criticizing those that have the courage to do so. To this council that has shown the guts and the foresight to pass the utility fee, I say cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund. We move now to boards and commissions. We have no resignations. I have one appointment with the unfortunate death of Zoning Board of Adjustment member Sandra Logan. One of my appointments as to the alternate position, David Harper, has been appointed to the position previously occupied by Ms. Logan, and I have a vacancy that I wish to appoint tonight. I'm asking the council to ratify my appointment of Scott Garrett as a Zoning Board of Adjustment alternate with an effective date of the 19th of November. If you will, register your desire for whether or not to approve. Okay, and that carries by unanimous vote. There are, under item number 11, there are no absences by council members. We come now to item 12, and that is to take any action deemed necessary as a result of executive session. We did have one item that was discussed in executive session that needs the council to take action on at this time. We had an item posted, I believe, with regard to the evaluation of the city secretary position, and the council, I think, at this time is ready to bring forth a motion regarding that issue on the agenda. Members of the council, what is your pleasure regarding item number 11? Councilmember Lanford.
Move to approve the increase in salary per the city policy as discussed previously.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Councilmember Hutchison.
That would be a second.
Okay, Councilmember Holcomb.
That was also a second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have any discussion on the motion? There being none, if you'll register your vote. And that passes by unanimous vote of the council. We have addressed every item on the agenda. That being the case, and there being no further executive session items the council needs to address at this time, we stand adjourned.